Hi, in this segment I'm going to teach you how to put pearls on the edge of a wedding veil. And wedding veils don't have to be white anymore. This is a salmon color and we have teal behind me over here, and isn't it luscious? And you might get asked to make something like that, you never know. So it's nice to know that you can use any color tool or Bridal Illusion that you want to use. And sometimes you're not making a wedding dress or a wedding veil. Sometimes you're making a First Communion veil. This is my daughter's First Communion veil. This is about, she just turned 26, so this veil is probably, at least 15 years old. Isn't it beautiful? And it has these little ribbon beaded flowers that I was able to pick up at a bridal shop. Not a bridal shop, but a larger supplier of fabrics. And then I added these little 1/8" ribbons for a touch of kind of soften up the entire look. And on this part right here, this is wire edging with the satin edge foot. And all of this is on a banana clip. So my daughter was able to wear her hair however she wanted, and everybody else had these little crowns over their head, pushing it on their head. But not my daughter, not my Jen. Now in this case, on this wedding veil, you'll see that the beads are curly, or the fabric is curly from the beads. And that's because the Bridal Illusion was cut across the grain, so it stretches. And just the act of sewing the beads on made it do that beautiful, very unique look. Now if you don't want your Bridal Illusion to stretch, then you're going to use the stick and rinse tape. And don't be fooled by other copies of this product. This one is clear and it doesn't have a bias. So the lack of a bias makes it prevent your fabric from stretching out of shape. So then we're just going to go ahead and figure out how much of this we need. And peel off the release liner. Now if you can't get a hold of the release liner, using Scotch tape on the corner will help you get a hold of it. You can also fold it over and create a crease. And then try folding back just the top side. And the top side is the non-shiny side. So I had the wrong side up. And then after you fold it over and you peel toward it, it will continue to peel off. And then on a flat surface, it's very difficult to see bridal veil fabric on a white surface if it's a white veil. So I chose a teal color for you. Or, no I didn't, I chose a salmon color because my machine is so blue, a teal would disappear. And your machines are white, so when you use a white veil, the white tool will kind of disappear on your machine. You see the tape now will lock the wedding veil in place so you can't cause the fabric to pucker by sewing pearls on. And a really neat feature of that is that you can cut your veil now, not straight, but create a curved edge on it. I'm going to do a little bit straight and then a little curved for you. So you see how this is straight right here, but we don't have the bridal veil cut yet. So we cut after the tape is applied to create the edge that the beads will be sewn on. And you'd be surprised how viable this fabric is. It's not going to change in any way when you get it wet. So after you sew the beads on, you can just soak it in the sink and then pull it out, and it's beautiful. No one can tell that you ever got it wet. So we have the straight edge, should you want a straight, non-wavy pearl edge, and then this is the scallopy appearance, so you could literally create scallops, have a wedding veil that goes scallop, 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 scallop with beads on the edge. Or sew across the grain the way that it stretches. to create that feathered, or what do we call that? We call it lettuce edge appearance. Now it's hard to imagine that you can sew right on the edge of this, considering that you can barely see it, but you can, and I'm going to show you how now. So we're going to use a nylon lingerie thread, or you can match your thread to the color of the Bridal Illusion. And I call it that because that's what I learned to call it years ago when I first invented this foot. That was a long time ago when the pearls first came out on a string. And they're usually small, and here's a white version of the pearls. But if you have a bride who wants a larger pearl, we can also sew the larger pearls, even though the foot doesn't seem to be able to take that size bead. We can sew any size pearl that you can put underneath the foot. Your sewing machine limits you based on the zigzag width that your sewing machine can achieve. So if you want to do the 6mm pearl, you need a 7mm zigzag swing. If you don't have it, then you can hand sew them on. Pearls and piping foot will guide the beads automatically for you. This is very exciting to watch. What we have here is we have a tunnel that is shaped like this, so when the beads are big, it drops on top and the beads settle here, and when the beads are small and the roof sets on top, the beads settle up here. And that's why you never have to hold your beads when working with the Creative Feet pearls and piping foot. And since I don't feel like changing my thread right now, I'm going to leave the color that's on the machine. And on my machine, the washer on the presser foot goes to the right. On yours, it may go to the left. You're going to determine that based on putting the pearls underneath the foot, and if the needle does not hit the beads, you know you're in the right position. If not, if it does come down and want to strike the beads, then you take the foot off, slide the washer to the opposite side, and you're good to go. I'm using my wonderful needle threader, ta-da, to thread my needle. That's not something you can buy separately. It's part of the sewing machine. I get asked that a lot. Can I buy that threader? No, that's part of the mechanics of the sewing machine, and this is the Baby Lock Crescendo. So now I'm going to take and lower the presser foot. I'm going to start by sewing and showing you as you go through here, the foot will just slide the pearls right underneath the tunnel if the beads are smaller. If you want to do a larger pearl, then you're going to need to lift the presser foot. See how the beads are really just real easy to just slide right out from underneath the presser foot. So if you want to sew a bigger bead and you want to get really fun with it, I mean, if somebody doesn't want a white wedding, they want color, you can get colored beads and have a lot of fun with it. You might think that with a larger bead you want a longer stitch length, but that's not the case. I have found that over the years that if I use a shorter stitch length with a larger bead than the size of the stitch length I use for a smaller bead, I don't get as much puckers. And it's all about not getting puckers unless we want the wavy look. And now I'm using a zigzag stitch. Select a width wider than the pearl. And if you can, go wider than the pearl. And that has to do with your sewing machine's capabilities. So we want the stitch to go to clear the foot. So you want to make sure your needle's not going to come down and strike that presser foot zigzag opening. And I'm going to go down 1/2 millimeter narrower, even though it cleared it, just for my comfort's sake. And if you use an invisible thread, your stitch won't show at all. It's cool. And if you do, use nylon of the monofilament thread. So now I'm going to increase my stitch length because I had it at a 0.40, which was way too narrow for anything other than applique, which is probably what I was doing last. So now I have no need to hold the beads. See, my hand is free to just rest my head. It doesn't get much easier than that, does it? Now this is a non-stabilized wedding veil section. and that's the 4mm wide bead. And I allowed a little bit more of the fabric to feed through as I was sewing, so it created a scalloped look along the edge of the wedding veil. These are the things you learn as you start using and playing with the pearls and piping foot. So now I'm going to switch to a smaller pearl and show you doing a different shape, where this is not just straight, this is a curve. And of course, once again, if you don't want your stitch to show, use an invisible thread or match the thread to the wedding veil, not the pearl. And this is a pretty standard wedding veil bead, and somebody got impatient and just snipped it because they couldn't find the end, and it might have been me. You can't prove it though. Now, I might do it again. After all, we are at the beginning of the spool. How much of the bead can we possibly lose by clipping in an impatient manner? Okay, I did find it. Don't want to show you a bad habit on film. So here we go. We slide the pearls underneath. We're going to use a wider width than the bead again. This is a 2.5mm wide pearl though, so I certainly don't need to go all the way to 6.5 on the width. So I'm going to take it down to a 4 on the width. And we'll go 4.5. Not looking at the sewing machine needle, but we do at the very beginning. Because what we want to do is want to figure out where in front of the foot that you need to keep your eye focused in order to make sure that the left swing always strikes the bridal veil. But you don't have to pay attention to the pearls at all. So we're simply steering our fabric, and you'll see how I'm holding with just one finger. I'm not pushing down, I'm not pulling through. I'm using one finger to guide the fabric. That's traditionally what I try to teach you. You can sew for 10 to 12 hours without getting sore up here. You might get sore in other places from sitting that long, but not from sewing with your head resting on your hands that are resting on the table because you're not lifting your elbows. Isn't this the way it should be? And imagine if you want to make some money and make some wedding veils, how much money you can make when a wedding veil only takes you a couple hours to make, and you can make one so elaborate. With the octi hoops, you can also embroider directly on your bridal veil. It is going to be on another episode of wedding techniques. Isn't that absolutely beautiful? And then when you go to rinse it away, all you're left with is a beautiful pearled edge on your wedding veil, or your first communion veil. I look forward to showing you more on bridal coming up on another episode soon.